You've convinced me that AI doesn't have to kill critical thinking. Where do you see AI genuinely supporting learning?
A large part of learning is being taught in a format that works for you. And I don't think the tools and products haven't been built yet for this to work perfectly.
You're literally building the AI tools we as kids are growing up with. When you're in those product meetings at Google, how do you balance innovation while making sure you're not accidentally creating something harmful?
We take responsibility very seriously. Every time we build a product, we think about, okay, what are ways this could be misused?
While parents everywhere are asking the same question, if my child leans on AI for answers, will it kill their curiosity or help them thrive in the future? That's what we're diving in today with Satyajeet Salgar from Google AI. He is someone who's shaping how billions of people use AI every day. You've written about how AI can make learning more personal. For parents who aren't as technical as you, what's the best way to create those experiences at home?
The amazing part is I think these tools don't need you to be technical, even as a parent. And candidly, this is something even I need to work on more, is be curious and learn with our kids.
What's the one piece of advice you'd leave with parents today to help their kids not just survive, but thrive in the AI era? Kids today are using AI in radically different ways. Some are using it to cheat on homework, some are launching million-dollar companies at 17, and some are learning 10 times faster and racing to the top of their class without even being born geniuses. While parents everywhere are asking the same question, if my child leans on AI for answers, will it kill their curiosity or help them thrive in the future? That's what we're diving in today with Satyajeet Salgar from Google AI. He is someone who's shaping how billions of people use AI every day. He's worked on YouTube and Google Search, stuff we constantly use. But he's also a dad, trying to figure out how to use AI at home with his own kids. Welcome to the AI Parenting Institute podcast. I'm your host, Rayan. Our mission on this podcast is to bridge the gap between today's leading AI experts and the parents and teens who are shaping the world of tomorrow. In this episode, Satyajit will walk you through how you can unlock 10 times faster learning for your kids, build creativity and critical thinking skills instead of replacing them, and prepare them with the skills they'll need to thrive in an AI-first world. My hope is that we both walk away from this knowing how to use AI to make our minds sharper, not duller. Satyajit, thanks for joining me.
Rayan, it's great to meet you. I'm excited to be here and excited to chat.
Thank you. All right, let's start with the elephant in the room, the fear that keeps so many parents up at night. If AI can write essays, solve math problems, and even generate creative ideas, does that mean the kids are losing the ability to think for themselves?
So let me answer that question first and then give you the longer version. The answer is no.
Sure.
But I think, let me put it this way, right? I didn't appreciate until I became a parent just how nerve-wracking that experience is, right? Like you feel suddenly responsible for these lives, and you're constantly questioning, am I doing the right thing? What are the risks that they have, right? And it starts literally from before they're born until I feel like at this point I am past the age of parenting, but like my mom still worries about me in certain ways, right? So it never goes away. It stays with you throughout your life. And I do think as new things come up, as technology changes, as like parents naturally worry. So I think whenever there's a technological change, parents rightfully worry about how it'll affect their kids because we haven't figured out how to adapt to it yet ourselves, right? So I can 100% tell you when I was young, my parents worried about, is this kid watching too much TV? Is this bad for him? Is that the reason he's wearing glasses? And they worried about all sorts of things, right? So today, like I think lots of parents worried about the impact of video games on social media, all of these things on their kids, and they're right to do so. I think AI, in my mind, is in itself is not the risk to kids, but it's in how it's used and sort of how we let our kids use it, right? If we use it, to me, like this is what I like to think of is this is the greatest technological change that certainly I have experienced, right? I've gone from basically a pre-internet era to like the internet, smartphones, all of that. This is dramatically bigger than anything. Like we should all be incredibly excited about this. We're democratizing intelligence. The flip side is, okay, we've built a society that tests a lot of things, including like how you develop uh, on sort of these mechanisms, right? So the way I think about it is, lots of people, like I wasn't allowed to use a calculator at school for a very long time, and I think it helped. I can do mental math, I think, much faster than my kid can at the same age, simply because I had to for much longer. Did it really matter as much, right? So if the use of a calculator meant our kids never learned to do addition or subtraction, yes, I think we're losing something. I think if it means that they can do many things faster and spend more time on other things now, but they've learned the basics enough, I think that's the right outcome. That's the right outcome for their development. That's the right outcome to prepare them for the world that they live in. And so I have a similar view towards AI. If our kids use it to like submit assignments and never learn the subject themselves, if
Mm-hmm.
our kids use it to the point of distraction that they can't, like they don't learn something themselves, they don't learn how to think,
Mm-hmm.
I do think that's a danger. On the other hand, like I do think it has the potential to help them learn something, help them learn faster in like incredibly exciting ways. So I do think we have to be extremely concerned about how our kids use AI,
Yeah.
but I think it's going to be quite the opposite. I think done well, it could unlock just the way they think and their potential.
Mm-hmm. Perfect analogy. So, Satyajit, you're literally building the AI tools we as kids are growing up with. So, when you're in those product meetings at Google, how do you balance innovation while making sure you're not accidentally creating something harmful?
Yeah, I will say I feel pretty lucky to work at Google, where I think we take responsibility very seriously of what is the impact of the products we're creating. A lot of the products have information at their heart, and sort of truthfulness and sort of how we think about things. Like it's critical to every single point, right? Like we think about what are the potential negative outcomes of of something being built in a certain way quite a bit. And this notion of like, let's respect the user, let's respect the opportunity, is really important at Google. And so every time we build a product, we think about, okay, what are ways this could be misused? And when it's appropriate, we always err on the side of actually sort of being careful and deliberate about the changes we make. And so obviously AI, we think a lot about this, the potential for misinformation, the potential for going down the wrong route, um, distraction, all of these things we discuss a ton before we launch a feature. So I
Mhm.
feel like I feel pretty good about the principles and the people that make sure that we don't sort of let something out in the world that will sort of you know be negative for people.
Mhm. You've convinced me that AI doesn't have to kill critical thinking. So let's dive into that first big promise from the intro, 10 times learning.
Mhm.
From your perspective at Google AI, where do you see AI genuinely supporting learning, like giving those 10 times returns? And where does it risk making kids over dependent?
That's a great question, and I let me maybe start with, before we get to my kids, who I'm sort of who are both sort of my purpose for a lot of these things, but also my guinea pigs to try some things on like this. Let's start with me, right? Which is, I find I am able to learn something new dramatically faster. I am able to generate better quality ideas because I suddenly have these intelligences at my disposal, right? It's literally like having, I fire up a few different LLMs, and it's like having a bunch of really smart friends that will help me with something. And then when I'm trying to create something, it's having a bunch of really smart analysts and tools at my disposal that can like accelerate me dramatically. I think with kids with 10x learning, And so the learning thing actually applies even to me today. I think with kids, it's two things, right? You're trying to create excitement and curiosity for them to learn, and then you want to give them the tools at the right
Mhm.
kind of priority. So I love telling the story about my daughter when she was in first grade, where I was trying to get her to do math, and she was. It's very hard, by the way. Like it's very hard as a parent to just even create practice problems for your kid. Like you go like, okay, do I have to like write them down or whatever? Guess what? ChatGPT, like just say like create 10 practice problems, works pretty well. And you print out a paper and hand it to your kid. But then I was like, okay, how do we make it fun? And I said, can you create a bunch of problems that are word problems, appropriate for a first grader, but make them all about princesses, unicorns, and I think they like threw in scientists and sports people.
Yeah, I read that in your Substack.
Yeah. And guess what? Like she was a little more engaged and she enjoyed doing them. And you know, a large part of learning is being taught in a format that works for you, right? And I think finding ways to do that is really important. The
Mhm.
second thing, and I don't think we're there as like the tools and products haven't been built yet for this to work perfectly, but
Mhm.
LLMs are just infinitely patient and can adapt to you. So there's a feature that that was announced and sort of starting to roll out across Gemini called guided learning, where the mode is very much, hey, I'm trying to learn a topic. I'm not going to give you the answer, but I'm going to help you learn, right? And you sort of tune that LLM to like for this particular use case.
Like your perfect pace teacher.
Correct, right? And then over time, and I don't think we're there yet. Like I think this will adapt to you. It will see what you do. It'll see, sort of what you struggle with, and will have the context to adapt to you. Right. So my one of my favorite examples is Notebook LM again, which I don't think I appreciated how many people like to learn a topic as a podcast where two people are talking to each other. I wouldn't have predicted like that's what sort of helped so many people. But clearly, like the reason we're so popular is we got used to listening to podcasts, and now people are like, oh yeah, I want to learn this topic, make it a conversation between these two people and help me
Mhm.
ramp up a little bit faster.
Mhm.
Now I think that applies to everyone prefers to sort of consume content in a particular format,
Mhm.
right? So you can imagine sort of entire lessons being taught to kids as cartoons, and like being customized as like, hey, you like this character, let's have this character in the story, or let's put you in the story and you as the protagonist. That lets you do that. So there's this thing called a Storybook that just released from Gemini, which basically you give it a prompt, it generates a short story with pictures and stuff for your kid. Imagine that being applied to lessons, right? So I think you have all these tools now that will engage kids deeply as they're trying to learn something. I think there's a lot of work to be done to make these sort of appropriate to the curriculum, and there are a bunch of companies trying that, but the tools now exist to do that.
And it's
And so
amazing that they're at your fingertips. Sorry.
they are. No, that's right. They are. These tools are at your fingertips now, and like you have this opportunity to just like, if you're a slightly older kid, right? So if you're, let's say, 12, 13, you can go down a rabbit hole. Like probably, my son spends a bunch of time. My son's 11. He spends a bunch of time just learning tricks on like how do I make progress in Roblox using Gemini, right? And but again, it's a way for him to be in a lot of the ways, like sort of hitting search accelerated a lot of people.
Mhm.
Like now this is just much faster, he goes deeper. And I think that again, like if you're curious, we now have this insanely powerful tool to like help you go down something faster. So he's trying to edit a video like literally this afternoon, and he was like, I need help with this video editing tool, and he's actually, never mind, I figured it out. I asked my friend, then I got the rest from the LLM, and then like, so I think this notion of anything we can do to unblock the things that like stop them from continuing to be curious, I think is really good.
Mhm.
And I think now we have this insanely powerful tool of like, just, yeah, keep going.
Amazing. You've written about how AI can make learning more personal. For parents who aren't as technical as you, what's the best way to create those experiences at home?
Yeah, so the amazing part is I think these tools don't need you to be like technical, right? Even as a parent. And so I think a lot of what we should be doing, and candidly, this is something even I need to work on more, is be curious and learn with our kids. Because I think these tools are evolving so fast that I think, but they're still very accessible to all of us, right? So
Mhm.
I think trying these tools, using that with them. The thing I've told myself I will do that I haven't done yet is frankly like just do more projects with my kids using these things, right? So I think it requires like any new skill, right? It requires commitment and time, and in this case, it's because it's you, your kid, and sort of technology, which you may still be figuring out. It requires patience, but I do think that's the thing I'm super excited to do more of, and I do think that's what parents should do, right? Which is uh, spend time with your kids on the stuff, because I frankly like this is one of those, there are things that are both good for you and for your kid, and this is one of them. I think sort of being on the learning journey together is just really like a really good thing to do.
100% agree. So you were saying you should write your own PRDs and it helps
Mhm.
sharpen your thinking and that you shouldn't be outsourced to AI. Could you also define PRDs in your answer, by the way? And also, how might parents apply that principle when helping kids do their homework or creative tasks?
No, that's so PRDs are product requirement documents.
Mhm.
It's one of the things that, as a product manager, like traditionally, that's uh, a significant part of what you do, right? You communicate what you need to do on a product to your team, typically your engineering team, and say like okay, this is why we're doing this. This is exactly how this thing should look. Here's the dependencies and all of that stuff, right? So it's a very traditionally it's PMs take pride in how well they write their PRDs, and like it's a great PRD. Like in theory, you can hand it to your engineer, and your product gets built, and people understand why it's important. Now, I think the reality is like the LLMs are pretty good at generating simple PRDs. So you give a little bit of context and like talk about what. In fact, in today's world, like you can talk to your LLM, it might even generate a prototype. You don't even need to get to the PRD. So a lot of people
Mhm.
will generate a really impressive looking document very quickly. Um, and again, sometimes this might be okay, right? But my general rule is, at least for me, the biggest value of a PRD is or a strategy document is clarifying my own thinking, right? It,
Mhm.
it, it makes it very clear to me why certain things need to be done in a certain way. I become very precise about what is actually important, what is not. And there's something about the human mind where when as you write you clarify your own thinking, it forces you to be
Mhm.
precise, right? Generally by the time, like if I write something, I've thought about it like in many ways to like distill it down to the 4 or 5 sentences. And I worry that like if you just generate these PRDs, in some cases it might be fine if the problem is very like simple, but it means you have never thought deeply about that thing,
Mhm.
and that eventually will show up. It means you can't defend the arguments as well. It means you lose the opportunity to think more deeply about the topic, which might spawn other ideas. And so, to me, like that is a part that is extremely dangerous.
Mhm.
And so that is why, like, and I think it's not dissimilar to like kids writing essays. You should absolutely like use an LLM to like give you the ideas for an essay or get more background. But there's something in the act of you putting everything together, you editing the thing that like clarifies your own thinking, deepens your own
Mhm.
knowledge. And I
Yeah.
think that's the part where I think it's really important to like preserve that. And so I think, by the way, a large part of education and a large part of work is figuring out what you can delegate to another intelligence and what you need to spend time like sort of building your muscle and your thinking on as well.
Mhm. This is brilliant for today's learning, but let's zoom out. Here's where I think a lot of parents are quietly panicking about tomorrow. As a Google leader and also as a parent, do you ever worry that kids' futures might be at a risk? With so many companies racing to replace human work with AI? And if you do share that concern, what steps are you personally taking to prepare your kids for an AI-driven world?
This is such a great question. I mean, my kids are young, so I think they are going to live almost certainly in a world that is dramatically different than sort of than what we have today. I was talking to a bunch of kids that are about to go to college a couple of days ago, and I realized that the world they will live in 4 years from now will be employment will look dramatically different. I think work will look
Mhm.
dramatically different. And so I think I thought about the advice I wanted to give them, and I'd say it's very, very similar, which is I imagine sort of um, AI is sort of accelerating the pace of change, right? So imagine living before the Industrial Revolution and after, right? In fact, actually, imagine living before the Industrial Revolution, before the internet, before computers, uh, before smartphones, and then after. I think the magnitude of change we're going to see, certainly, like let's say for my 8 year old in the next 10 years, will be that magnitude of change. So it's very hard to tell people prepare for this job, right? Like do this thing so that in college, so that you get this job because it will be something in demand. Because I
Mhm.
don't know, I don't think, or at least I don't feel confident predicting like that is the thing that'll happen.
Mhm.
So I think the thing that you want to do is to be as well prepared as possible for a world that's changing in this way. And I think for me, and I think this, by the way, holds for all of us. It holds, I think, especially for young people. I think young people, in some ways, are it is easier for them to learn and adapt. And by the way, I see this at work where I feel like the younger engineers and PMs are picking up a lot of things a lot faster than people that have been doing it longer for a while, just
Mhm.
because they're more open to the change. But I do think that is the key is figuring out what you like, how you like to do things, how you are at learning, and being genuinely curious about these tools, right?
Mhm.
So the example I always give is imagine being the first person in your company that got access to a computer. Everyone eventually will get one and be efficient and figure it out. But there will be this period of time where you just feel more efficient and feel better doing these things because you have access to this tool.
Mhm.
So I'd say like being close to the tools, not being skeptical of them, even though some of them may not be ready yet, and using the time as a young person to like figure out, okay, what do I really like? How do I really like to learn? How do I, what when I do a certain subject, does it give me energy? And maybe that's the thing I should like spend more time on. I think those things become dramatically more important.
Mhm. Our next question is based on tools. So, for someone starting out today, what's the best way for them to build a career toolkit that doesn't just prepare them for one job, but for a future of constant change?
Yeah, I building on the answer from before, right? Which is I think there's one thing, I often say is a lot of the analysis I think will be made easier for us. But I think people will still want to deal with other people when they are sort of making decisions. So I think being a really strong communicator, and I think you get that by just having empathy, understanding how to work with people,
Mhm.
knowing how to tell a story for anything. I think that becomes important irrespective of what is your job, right? Because when everyone sort of has similar analysis and data, how do you distinguish yourself? How do you connect these dots? So I think empathy, storytelling, communication, that becomes really important.
Hmm.
Thing that becomes important is your ability to use these tools but also push for an outcome. So some people call it grit, some people call it sort of just like not a negative way to put it is being like stubborn, but I wouldn't put it that way, just like being really sort of driven, and not taking, sort of knowing how to convert um, no's into yeses and knowing when to like ignore blockades in your way. I think that will become really much more important. So I think PMs like to use the word agency, like people that have high agency, and I think that again will matter for a bunch of functions. So I think the people that sort of the career toolkit for people is a sort of predictable path that you may have expected in your life is sort of gone, right? That what you need to do is you need to be prepared to adapt. So you need to
Hmm.
just be ready to deal with people. You need to be ready to like influence them, and then you need to have the ability to like not give up when you're sort of hit with these paths. Um, yeah, so I'd say just being willing to learn and then having these two sort of attributes becomes really important.
Hmm. We started today with fears about AI making kids lazy. But what I hear from you is that if AI used the right way, can actually spark curiosity, creativity, and resilience. So
Yep.
to close, what's the one piece of advice you'd leave with parents today to help their kids not just survive, but thrive in the AI era?
I think embracing the tools and preparing for a world that's going to be very different. I
Mhm.
think I think one of the kids pick up cues from their parents, right? So the thing that I realized when I had kids is, uh, in many ways the lives you want for them is the best version of the life that you want for yourself. And the only way for them to actually get it is for you to model it for them, right? So if you want to tell your kids be creative, or you should read more books, it's very hard for them to do that if they don't see you trying to be creative or they don't
Mhm.
see you reading more books. And so I think for me it's like model for them using AI to like make yourself better. Model for them using AI to learn something or doing something. I think that showcases for them, sort of just how powerful this technology is, and it gives them optimism, right? So I think one of the things I worry a lot about is, um, a lot of kids right now feel like AI is a thing that like I can use to like sort of cheat on my homework, and by the way, when I do it, I get caught. You don't want them having this negative view of technology, and so I think what the advice I give people is use AI, well, be it's very easy. It's also like a large part of my day job, so I'm very naturally positive about it. But be positive about it and give your kids that enthusiasm. Uh,
Yeah.
so
Parents
that
should show, sorry, parents should show like their kids the positive sides of AI.
exactly, and model it, right? Like actually model that behavior for them.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's the one piece of advice I'd give.
That was honestly amazing. Thank you so much, Satyajit, for breaking this down in a way that actually makes sense and that makes me and other people not panic. We're not watching critical thinking die, we're watching it become more powerful than ever. And the parents who understand that, their kids aren't just gonna survive in the AI era, they're gonna run it. Thank you, Satyajit, for this inspiring, eye opening conversation.
No, thank you, Ryan. It was great chatting with you. I'm excited we had this conversation.
Thank you once again. If this conversation changed how you think about AI in kids, help me get this message out to more parents. Subscribe to the AI Parenting Institute, share this with a parent who's stressed about AI, and drop a comment. I want to know, What's the one thing you're gonna try differently after hearing this? I'm Rayan. Thank you for trusting me with your time and your biggest parenting concerns. Until next time, let's keep building a future where kids don't adapt to change, they create it. Thank you.